Imagine working 40 years to pay off a house only to have your own children treat you like a guest who stayed too long. My name is Robert, and I spent 7 years being a ghost in my own home before a single piece of paper changed everything. The sun was barely up when the sound of the coffee maker started. It was a loud, grinding noise that I bought 3 years ago. I liked that coffee maker. But as I sat at the small kitchen table, I felt like I had to apologize for using it. My son, Jason, walked into the kitchen. He did not look at me. He did not say good morning. He just grabbed the pot and poured a cup. He was 35 years old. He had been living in this house for 7 years. He moved back in when his first business failed. He brought Brenda with him. At the time, they said it would only be for a few months. They needed to get back on their feet. I told them my door was always open. A few months turned into a year. 1 year turned into 7. In that time, I paid for everything. I paid the property taxes. I paid the electricity. I bought the groceries. I even paid for high-speed internet because Jason said he needed it for his job search. Brenda walked in a few minutes later. She was wearing a silk robe that I had given her for her birthday 2 years ago. She looked at the sink. "Robert, you left a spoon in the sink again," Brenda said. Her voice was sharp. It was the same tone she used every morning. She acted like a manager at a hotel complaining to a slow worker. "I was going to wash it after my toast," I said quietly. "It makes the kitchen look messy," she replied. She sat down next to Jason. "We need to talk about the grocery list. You bought the wrong kind of butter. Jason only likes the salted kind. The salted kind was $3 more," I said. "I am trying to keep the budget tight this month." Jason finally looked up from his phone. "Dad, it is just $3. Don't be cheap. We live here too, you know." I wanted to say yes. "You live here, but you do not pay for the butter." I did not say it. I didn't want a fight. I never wanted a fight. I just wanted a quiet retirement. I worked as an auditor for 35 years. I was good with numbers. I knew exactly how much money was going out and how little was coming in. My pension was decent, but it was not meant to support 3 adults. After breakfast, I went to my small office. It was the only room in the house that still felt like mine. The walls were covered in old photos. There was one of my late wife, Martha. She passed away 10 years ago. Sometimes I talked to her picture when the house got too loud. "I don't know what to do, Martha," I whispered. "They treats me like I am the one taking up space." I heard a loud laugh from the living room. Jason and Brenda were watching a movie. It was 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. Neither of them had an interview. Neither of them had a lead on a job. Jason had ideas. He always had ideas. He wanted to start a gym. He wanted to sell organic dog food. He wanted to trade stocks. But he never wanted to work a regular job. Brenda said she was finding herself. She spent most of her time at the mall or the spa, using the credit card I gave them for emergencies. I checked my bank statement. They had spent $200 at a restaurant over the weekend. I hadn't gone out to eat in months. I stood up and went to the living room. "Jason, I saw the bill from Saturday," I said. Jason didn't pause the movie. "Oh, yeah? It was Brenda's friend's birthday. We had to go. It would have looked bad if we didn't. I can't keep covering these things," I said. "My savings are dropping. We talked about you getting a part-time job at the warehouse." Brenda rolled her eyes. "A warehouse, Robert? Jason has a degree. He is not going to lift boxes for minimum wage. We are waiting for the right opportunity." "The right opportunity doesn't pay the electric bill," I said. "You're being dramatic," Brenda said. "You have plenty of money. You just like to hold it over our heads. It's like you want us to feel bad for being hit by hard times." I felt a heat rise in my chest. Hard times did not usually involve spa days and expensive steak dinners. But I took a deep breath. I went back to my office. Every Friday, I did one thing for myself. I went to the gas station down the road. I bought a cup of coffee and a lottery ticket. It was a $5 habit. It was the only gamble I ever took. I liked the routine. The clerk, a young man named Leo, knew me. "The usual Robert?" Leo asked when I walked in that Friday. "The usual Leo," I said. I pulled out my wallet. I had a special card in there. It was a lottery gold card. In our state, you can register your name to your tickets. It helps if you lose the ticket, or if it gets stolen. Everything is tracked by the State Lottery Commission. I had registered mine years ago. I bought the ticket for the $85 million jackpot. I didn't think I would win. I just liked the 3 minutes of dreaming I did while I walked back home. When I got back, Brenda was in the kitchen. She was looking for something. "Where is the mail?" she asked. "On the counter," I said. She grabbed a magazine and then saw my lottery ticket. She picked it up and looked at it. "You waste so much money on these," she said. $5 here, $5 there. That's why you're always complaining about the budget." "It's my $5, Brenda," I said. She tossed the ticket back on the counter. "Whatever. It's a loser anyway. People like you never win." I put the ticket in the drawer next to the fridge. I didn't think about it again for 2 days. On Sunday night, the drawing happened. I was in bed reading a book. Suddenly, I heard a scream. It was so loud I thought someone had been hurt. I ran out of my room. I saw Jason and Brenda in the kitchen. Brenda was holding the lottery ticket. Her hands were shaking. Jason was staring at his phone. "We won," Brenda whispered. "Jason, look at the numbers." "We won!" Jason grabbed the ticket from her. He looked at his phone, then at the ticket, then back at his phone. "Oh my God!" Jason said. "It's 85 million. We are rich. We are actually rich." They started jumping up and down. They were hugging each other. They were screaming and laughing. I stood in the doorway, confused. "Is that my ticket?" I asked. Brenda stopped jumping. She looked at me. Her face changed. The excitement stayed, but it turned into something cold. Something mean. "Our ticket," Jason said. "We found it. We checked it. This is our ticket to a new life. I bought that on Friday," I said. "I put it in the drawer." Brenda stepped forward. She was clutching the ticket to her chest. "You bought it with money that should have gone to the household. Since we live here, and we are a family, this belongs to all of us. But mostly it belongs to the people who have a future." I didn't understand what she meant. "A future? We've been stuck in this dusty old house for 7 years, Robert," Brenda said. Her voice was growing louder. 7 years of listening to you complain about the heat and the butter and the spoons in the sink. We are done. I gave you a place to live for 7 years," I reminded her. "And we paid for it with our youth," she screamed. "You made us feel like charity cases. Well, guess what? We don't need your charity anymore." She walked past me into the hallway. She went into my room. I followed her, my heart racing. "What are you doing?" I asked. Brenda grabbed a suitcase from the top of my closet. She threw it onto my bed. She started grabbing my clothes and shoving them inside. "Brenda, stop that," I said. Jason stood in the doorway. He didn't stop her. "Dad, maybe it's for the best," Jason said. "You've been saying you can't afford us. Well, now we can afford everything. But we want a fresh start. We want this house to ourselves until we buy our mansion." "You should go." "Go where?" I asked. "This is my house. My name is on the deed." "Not for long." Brenda laughed. She zipped up the suitcase. She walked over to the window and opened it. She picked up my suitcase and threw it out. I heard it hit the grass outside. "Go find a nursing home," she screamed. "Go die in a nursing home for all I care. We are millionaires now. We don't have to look at your miserable face ever again." She grabbed my arm. She was stronger than she looked. She pushed me toward the front door. Jason followed, looking at the ticket in his hand like it was a holy object. They pushed me out onto the porch. It was cold. I was wearing my slippers and a thin sweater. "Wait," I said. "The ticket. You need to look at the ticket." Brenda slammed the door. I heard the lock click. I stood on the porch for a moment. I looked at my suitcase lying on the lawn. My clothes were spilling out into the dirt. I didn't feel sad. That was the strange part. I felt a cold, clear logic in my brain. I had spent years being a doormat. But I was an auditor. I knew how rules worked. I walked down the steps. I picked up my suitcase. I walked to the end of the driveway and sat on the curb. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I called the police. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers got out. "Everything okay, sir?" one of them asked. "No," I said. "I have been locked out of my own home by my son and his wife. They are also in possession of a stolen lottery ticket." The officers looked at each other. "A stolen lottery ticket? That's a serious claim. It is registered to my name with the state," I said. "I have the gold card in my wallet. I also have the digital receipt on my phone. The ticket they have is mine." The officers went to the door. They knocked loudly. It took a few minutes, but Brenda opened the door. She was holding a glass of wine. She looked like she was already celebrating. "Officers, is there a problem?" she asked. She looked past them and saw me sitting on the curb. She laughed. "Is he complaining? We told him to leave. He's been a burden on us for years." "Ma'am, this gentleman says you are in possession of his lottery ticket," the officer said. Brenda's face went pale for a second, then she put on a fake smile. "Oh, he's confused. He's old. We bought that ticket together. It's a family ticket. I bought it alone," I called out from the curb. "I used my registered account. Check the back of the ticket." The officer looked at Brenda. "Can we see the ticket, ma'am?" Jason came to the door. He was holding the ticket. He looked nervous. "It's our ticket, officer. We found it. If you found it in his drawer, and it is registered to him, it is his property," the officer said. "Hand it over." Jason slowly handed the ticket to the officer. The officer looked at the back. There was a barcode and a registration number. The officer walked back to me. He looked at my phone. I showed him the app. It showed my purchase history. It showed the ticket number I bought at 5:32 p.m. on Friday at the specific gas station. "Everything matches," the officer said. He walked back to the porch. Brenda was starting to scream again. "You can't do this! That is our money! He's old, he doesn't need it. We've been living here, we have rights." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," the officer said. They didn't arrest them right away, but they told them they had to leave the house. Since I was the owner and they were creating a hostile environment, the officers told them they had 1 hour to pack their things. The irony was beautiful. I walked back up the porch. The officers stood by the door while Jason and Brenda packed. Brenda was crying. Jason was just staring at the floor. Brenda walked past me with a trash bag full of her clothes. She stopped and looked at me. "You're a monster," she hissed. "You're going to let your own son live on the street while you have $85 million? I looked at her. I looked at the silk robe she was still wearing. "I lived on $5 a week for myself so you could eat steak," I said. "I let you treat me like a servant in the house I paid for. I was never the monster, Brenda. I was just the bank. And the bank is closed." "Dad, please," Jason said. "I'm sorry." She got excited. We both did. "It's a lot of money. We can stay, right? We can be a family?" I looked at my son. I saw the same person who had ignored me for 7 years. I saw the man who had watched his wife throw my father's old sweaters out a window. "Did you read the name on the ticket, Jason?" I asked. "What?" "The ticket is registered to Robert A. Miller," I said. But more than that, I am the one who owns this house. You have 1 hour. If you are not gone, the officers will remove you. I went into the kitchen. I picked up the spoon from the sink. I washed it. I dried it. I put it away. They left 40 minutes later. They didn't have a car. I had been paying for their Uber rides for years. They had to call a friend to pick them up. I watched from the window as they stood on the sidewalk with their bags. They looked small. They looked exactly like the people they were, people who had never built anything for themselves. The next morning, I went to the lottery office. I had a lawyer with me. I didn't pick a fancy lawyer. I picked an old friend from my auditing days. We filled out the paperwork. I chose the lump sum. After taxes, it was still more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. The news found out, of course. Big lottery wins always make the papers. Reporters came to my house. I didn't answer the door. A week later, I got a letter. It was from Jason. He told me they were staying in a cheap motel. He said Brenda was depressed. He said he had realized his mistakes. He asked if I could just send $10,000 to help them get an apartment. I didn't reply. Instead, I put the house up for sale. It was a good house, but it had too many bad memories now. I sold it to a young couple with a baby. They looked so happy to have a home. I sold it to them for less than the market price. I didn't need the money. I moved to a quiet town by the coast. I bought a small house. It was new. It had a big kitchen and a view of the water. I spent my days walking on the beach. I bought a new coffee maker, one that was even quieter. One afternoon, about 6 months later, I was sitting on my porch. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered it anyway. Hello? Dad? It was Jason. He sounded tired. Yes, Jason, I said. I just wanted to see how you were, he said. We moved to a different state. I'm working at a grocery store now. Stocking shelves. That's good, Jason, I said. Work is good for a man. Brenda left, he said. His voice cracked. When she realized the money was really gone, and that you weren't going to change your mind, she left. She's with some guy who has a boat. I wasn't surprised. Brenda never loved Jason. She loved the idea of what Jason could provide. When he provided nothing, she moved on. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And I was. I didn't hate my son. I was just done being his victim. Can I come see you? He asked. Not for money. Can we just talk? I looked out at the ocean. I thought about the 7 years of silence. I thought about the suitcase flying out the window. Not yet, Jason, I said. You need to be a man on your own for a while. You need to know what it feels like to earn your own butter. I understand, he whispered. I hung up the phone. I didn't feel mean. I felt like a father for the first time in a decade. I was finally teaching him a lesson that mattered. I realized then that the $85 million wasn't the real prize. The prize was the freedom to say no. I had been a provider for so long that I forgot how to be a person. I forgot that I deserved respect. The money gave me the wall I needed to keep the ghosts out. I spent the rest of the evening reading. I didn't check the lottery numbers that Friday. I didn't need to. I had already won the only thing that mattered. I had my life back. It is easy to let people walk over you when you think you have no choice. It is easy to stay quiet because you fear being alone. But being alone in a quiet house is much better than being lonely in a house full of people who do not care about you. I learned that respect is not something you get because you are old. It is not something you get because you are a father. It is something you must demand by setting boundaries. If I had set those boundaries 7 years ago, maybe Jason would be a different man today. Maybe I helped make him that way by being too kind. But it is never too late to start over. I looked at the photo of Martha on my mantel. I smiled. We're doing okay, Martha, I said. The house was quiet. The coffee was hot. and for the first time in 7 years I was home. If this story resonated with you, join our channel by liking and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.